Astonishing here in the lower mainland. We've had snow over the last 24 hours. There's actually documented reports of hockey being played on the frozen Fraser in 1862, and certainly there was hockey played in Victoria on Goodacre Lake and on Trout Lake here in Vancouver and on Rice Lake in North Van. And I think that's one of the points Jim Hughson really wanted to pick up on is we're all selling this as 1915 Stanley Cup all over again, Ottawa, Vancouver. Maybe folks say, so what? But this is a great place to have a Heritage Classic, Jim, and I know you're pretty proud of the BC roots in the game.
Yeah, and you know, I didn't realize just how deeply rooted the game is in British Columbia till during the lockout. I had some spare time, a lot of it, and got tired of talking all the time about the players and the owners and that sort of thing. So I did some research for some of the radio shows I've done and found all of these archives at UBC of old BC newspapers from the turn of the century. I'm talking 1900. Found that the game of hockey was really prominent then. Did you know, for example, I asked you this question before, so I'll tell people, but did you know that there was a hockey team in Phoenix in 1900? Phoenix, British Columbia, not Phoenix, Arizona. All of these little small towns in the Boundary and Kootenay district of British Columbia, Ron, had hockey teams. The miners came from the east. They brought with them their love for the game, and they played. And so places like Phoenix, which is now a ghost town because the copper mine is no more, places like Sandon, British Columbia, which is a ghost town, and actually had an indoor arena, the first indoor rink west of Winnipeg that was built in about 1900, later burned down. But they all had hockey teams, and they had these challenges. They didn't play in leagues, but they would challenge each other, and they'd ride along the Caslow and Slocan Railway and challenge each other. For $2.75, you could ride the rail and go to one of the tournaments. And as a side note, in Sandon, Tiny Thompson, Cecil Tiny Thompson, a Hall of Famer, Boston Bruin goaltender, was born there. And his father was a hockey player, went to Calgary and on to Boston. So rich history of hockey around the turn of the century, about 1900 to 1920.
And your big thing, too, because Fort St. John, your roots,
yes.
Senior hockey. I'm really excited about the Patricks, of course, and we celebrated that when we were in Nelson for Hockey Day. The fact that Joe sold his lumber business, $440,000, and his son, Frank. Lester was against it, but Frank talked Dad into spending $350,000 to create the PCHL and reinvented the game. But senior hockey, before we maybe touch on that if time permits.
Well, there's a cup called the Savage Cup. It's one of the oldest hockey trophies in Canada. It's been presented to the champion of senior hockey in British Columbia since 1913. The only time it wasn't presented was one year, I believe, during the war. But in the halcyon days of senior hockey in this province, the Kootenays had wonderful teams, the Nelson Maple Leafs, the Kimberley Dynamiters. In the Caribou, it would be teams like the Quesnel Kangaroos and the Williams Lake Stampeders. In the north, where I came from, the Fort St. John Flyers and Dawson Creek Canucks, Vernon Canadians, the Kelowna Packers. There was hockey all through this province, and they played for the Savage Cup, and we don't know where that trophy is. I suspect somebody in Fort St. John's got it in their basement.
Well, my one thing is the connection to McGill University in Montreal, the fact that Mike Babcock comes out of there, Dick Irvin comes out of there, but Frank Patrick came out of there as a captain of McGill in 1907 to create. There were three pro teams here, Victoria, Vancouver, New Westminster, and Frank was the guy that made Cyclone Taylor go from defense to forward. He was the guy that created changing on the fly, and it's so cool that Mike Babcock used those 30-second shifts in Sochi to win gold easily.
And a lot of it happened here. So my whole point was, don't get caught up in Ottawa against Vancouver in 1915. All of this is happening today because it all started 120 years ago.
Jim Hughson called the game with Kelly Rudy ringside. Shortly, Senators, Canucks. The Tim Hortons Heritage Classic continues on CBC from BC Place in a moment.